Hello, and welcome to the Wisconsin Farm to Early Care and Education Training webinar presented by Rooted. Today we'll be focusing on hands-on farm to early care and education, or ECE, activities you can do with your students. This training is available for Registry Credit for providers, and information on how to receive this credit will be at the end of the video. Now for an introduction. My name is Stephanie Bugash-Scopoline, and I am a farm to ECE trainer with Rooted and the outreach specialist for the Wisconsin School Garden Network. This training video is brought to you by Rooted, as I mentioned before, and our work with Farm to Early Care and Education is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. So to start off, I want to talk a little bit about what is Farm to Early Care and Education, or Farm to ECE. Farm to ECE is something that can be carried out with anybody who spends time with young children. At the heart of it is a desire to teach kids where their food comes from and how this food is grown and made. We want to also create a positive relationship with healthy food and to help our children understand how food forms connections with their families, cultural identities, and community. Not everyone may call it Farm to ECE, but if you've ever planted a seed with a kid or taken your students or child in your care to a farmer's market or pumpkin patch, you are already participating in Farm to ECE. Farm to ECE is generally thought of in 4 different activity areas, although all of these activity areas are interconnected. They are local foods in meals, snacks, and taste tests, hands-on learning and play in nutrition, food, and agriculture, planting and tending to edible plants, and then family engagement in health and wellness. This video is a part of a series of 4 videos on these different activity areas. Today, we'll be focusing on the activity area hands-on learning and play in nutrition, food, and agriculture, or just hands-on activities for short. Now let's dive into our focus area for today, hands-on activities. I want to mention too that this really, there's a lot of focus with this activity area on nutrition education. So our objective and outline for today, our objective is to build knowledge and confidence in engaging children in hands-on farm to ECE activities through books, song, dramatic play, and cooking. The outline that we have, first we'll talk about benefits of facilitating hands-on farm to ECE activities with young children. Then we'll touch on general in the classroom activities. We'll switch to taking a deeper dive into cooking with young children. And then I'll give some different tips on how to get, now that we have all these ideas, what's a good place to get started. We'll end with some resources and funding ideas. So before we dive into our specific activity ideas, I want to talk about the benefits of participating in hands-on farm to ECE activities. We did a survey of early care and education providers in Wisconsin, and the #1 reason they engage with farm to ECE activities is for the health of their students and the children in their care. Through hands-on activities around food, nutrition, and agriculture, we can help create healthy habits in children. I read a recent study that talked about by the age of 7, children actually are already starting to develop and solidify their taste preferences. So the more we can expose kids to new and healthy foods, the more we can help shape these taste preferences for healthy foods. We also know that health goes beyond the physical body, but it is mental and cognitive and emotional as well. Farm to ECE focuses on the health of the whole child. By participating in Farm to ECE activities, we have helped to create and build strong cultural identities through food and plants, songs and stories. And lastly, by engaging in Farm to ECE activities, you can also promote racial and social equity, which I'll touch on more in the next slide. Now making the connection between hands-on farm to ECE activities and social and racial equity. We know in Wisconsin that not all children have equal access to healthy foods and high-quality learning environments. For some of us, fresh foods are easy to come by, but for many, especially those without transportation, this is not the case. Even in rural and farming communities, access to these foods is not always easy. So through Farm to Early Care and Education, we can expose children to different cultures through books and songs. We can get them to try new foods from other cultures, and it can be an opportunity for them to share foods from their own cultures. This can really help build self-efficacy and also help build that self-esteem. All right, so now we're going to go and touch on the different ways to incorporate Farm to Early Care and Education activities into your program. The first is books. Books can be a wonderful resource to learn more about growing, making, and eating food. In reading the books, children can be inspired maybe to try new foods or use them in a recipe. Some books even include recipes for the foods from the story at the end of the book. Consider reading a book during your story time or maybe before a cooking activity. Here are a couple of books that we recommend for young readers. We have Lola Plants a Garden, Growing Vegetable Soup, and then Up in the Garden and Down in the Dirt. Keeping in the same vein and talking about books more, there are many wonderful available books that connect children on how their food is grown and how it also honors cultural and connections to food. You can go to this website, Ready, Set, Grow, to find a collection of multicultural farm to early care and education books. We'll also have a link to this website in the description below. And again, as I talked about before, this is a great way to tie in those concepts of racial and social equity into your program. Now touching on other ways you can include Farm to ECE in your program. I know many of you have interest areas around the classroom, and you can integrate Farm to ECE into these different interest areas or create a whole new one. One way is you could provide props. Maybe you're playing restaurant or bakery, or maybe you create a farm stand or a flower shop. These are in your dramatic play areas. You could also provide magnifying glasses so that students can observe insects or the plants or the worms. This photo on the right there is from Homegrown Nature School in La Crosse, and they have a little mud kitchen for the kids to engage with the mud and get that sensory input. And then last but not least, finger play can be a wonderful way. Fingers make really, really great carrots, and so as you're thinking about your different finger plays, start to introduce concepts around food. Now I just want to share a couple of other ideas for including Farm to ECE activities into your program. We can visit farm or farmer's market for a nearby field trip. You could have the farmer physically visit the classroom and share about what they grow. You can definitely look on Pinterest. I know there are lots of ideas if you were to look up activities related to food or agriculture. Art can be a wonderful way to talk about food and incorporate food. I know there's a lot of activities out there that do with beet stamping or food stamping. If you have a felt board in your classroom, you can introduce different foods into the felt board or create a felt board. And then gardening as well. We don't talk a lot about gardening in this activity. We do have another video that is dedicated full to gardening activities with young children. And so for more ideas on gardening, please check out that video. I do want to say, though, that gardening really is a wonderful, wonderful hands-on activity to do with children, and it's a great way to get them connected to their food. Now we're going to talk about cooking activities with children. Before I dive into the different activity ideas, I want to touch on why is this beneficial for children. First of all, it can introduce new vocabulary. It can help practice those fine motor skills with chopping and dicing and shredding. It can involve cooperation and interaction. So maybe there's a recipe that takes multiple steps and you need to take turns. And so that then builds a sense of cooperation and interaction with the other students around them. It can also lead to early literacy and math skills, measuring. We're talking about numbers, early literacy. We're looking to read those numbers as we do the measuring parts. It can also help engage all the different senses. We can taste, we can touch, we can smell. And then we've seen over and over again in our different programs that children are really, really willing to try what they had a hand in making. Oftentimes, I'm very surprised, not anymore, but I was first surprised when we were making salads together, how much the children were willing to eat those salads because they had a hand in helping create all those different aspects of the salad. Before we dive into the cooking activities, I want to give some tips for food preparation with children. This is a great quote from Gretchen. She says, all of the children want to help with everything. So for example, if we just need a small amount of something, I quickly add it in at the end. Or for something like cinnamon, all the kids add some. And if we end up with super cinnamony muffins, then we learn something from it. I think this is a great example of a tip. The first tip being that if there's something small like baking soda or baking powder, that maybe you want to add that in yourself, maybe at the end or the beginning of the mixing process, because you know that if you were to add too much baking soda, that could really detract from the taste of what you are baking. But something like cinnamon, right, all of the children then could help adding that cinnamon because that's something that kids enjoy and it's a little bit more forgiving. This also can help with that cause and effect relationship, which is important for young children to learn. If we add too much cinnamon, what's going to happen? Let's make a prediction together. Will our muffins turn out super cinnamony, or maybe they won't? We learned that maybe next time we should add less cinnamon. Another tip is that we can break things up into steps. So maybe depending on how many children you can have each child do a step. This can also lead to early literacy. So you could have maybe the steps up on a whiteboard and talk about the different steps that you're taking. We can also take turns. One of my favorite things to do when stirring is to pass the bowl around so every child gets a chance to stir. And then the last bit of advice is to keep the recipe simple. Something that has 20 to more steps, that can be a lot. So keeping it a little bit simple. There are many recipes on Pinterest that have 4 to 5 ingredients. Another tip for cooking with children is to have the right equipment. One of our favorite pieces to use is a wavy chopper. We use 2 hands on top, and that helps keep fingers out of the way. And they're really not that sharp, but they are able to cut vegetables with the right pressure. Nylon knives are very similar in terms of their ability to chop fruits and vegetables. Spiralizers can be really fun if you have that guard on top that keeps fingers away from the blades. There's also pull cord options. So there's a pull cord food processor that you can see in the upper left-hand corner. And then there's also hand cranks as hand crank blenders. You can also have the kids help with salad spinners or maybe a potato masher. All of these things, in the end, if you have the right equipment and maybe enough equipment for the station, will lead to having a better positive cooking experience with the children. Now we're going to take a look at the different cooking activities you can do by age. First off is infants. Infants can play at different sensory tables or outdoors, maybe with different cooking tools such as measuring cups, spoons, whisks, funnels, ladles, or sieve. You can do this with sand or water or mud. Toddlers can help tear lettuce for salads. They can also shake a baby food jar with cream to help make butter, and we'll touch on that activity in a little bit. They can help mash and stir cooked potatoes. They can dip different vegetables into hummus or other spreads, and they can help turn hand crank blenders to make smoothies or different food processors to make salsa. Now moving on to 3 to 4-year-olds. 3 to 4-year-olds can help pour pre-measured liquid ingredients into a bowl. They can also scrub carrots with a brush. They can spread hummus on crackers or maybe other spreads. They can also start to do some slicing and chopping with soft fruits and vegetables. And we can also use cookie cutters to shape sandwiches or other baked goods. And our last category here are 4K and school-age children. They can really help with all sorts of aspects of the cooking, from measuring ingredients to whisking a sauce or dressing together. They can help cut up herbs with scissors, and they can also help to slice for those firmer fruits and vegetables. They can also help to follow a simple recipe, and again, this touches on ideas of early literacy and math concepts. Now moving on, I want to touch on some of our favorite activities that we've done. The first up is making butter. So for making butter, the materials that you need is a jar or a container, some heavy whipping cream, and a little bit of salt. First, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and fill up that jar around halfway full of the heavy whipping cream. You'll screw on the lid tightly, and then you'll shake the jar for around 10 to 20 minutes. And this is a really, really fun thing to do with the kids. They can help shake the jar, and we can take a look at the jar as you're shaking it to see the process develop. 10 to 20 minutes, I know that's a variable time, but it kind of depends on how well your shakers are. The butter will be done when it has kind of reached this more of a solid or a whipped form. And then you can add some salt in at the end as a kind of a taste preferences, and then just stir that salt around. This can be a really, really great way to connect children to their food. And we know that Wisconsin is the home of the dairy state. And so this could be a great conversation about where does milk and where does butter come from. Another one of our favorites are veggie faces. This is basically a cracker with a spread on top. Maybe it's hummus or a bean dip spread or some cream cheese or maybe some butter that you just made. And then you can decorate the top of that cracker and that spread with all sorts of vegetables, making a face. I've also seen students make animals or other creatures like that, but we can use parsley for hair or cabbage. You can have carrots or anything round for eyes. I use chickpeas, can be really, really fun. And then we use peppers and other round, semicircular things for mouths. You can also add ears or nose. So you can really quite get creative with this, and the kids love making these different faces, and it's a great way to get them to try something new. Another one of our favorite is the bean babies. First, you need to obtain bean seeds. You can get these from the grocery store. Just any dried beans will work, or from a local garden store. You then take a cotton ball and you get it wet with some water. You then put the bean seed into the cotton ball, and then you put that cotton ball and bean seed into a plastic bag, like a jewelry bag. You can get these online. They're pretty inexpensive, maybe 10 cents per bag. And then you punch a hole at the top of the jewelry bag, sliding a string through that to create a necklace. The kids can then wear the necklaces around them, and the body, the heat from their bodies, will then warm the seed and help it to germinate. This can be really, really fun for the kids to see the bean growing. You can talk about predictions. You can say, will the seed sprout? What will it look like when it sprouts? So this can be a really fun activity to engage kids in different types of foods and connect them to the foods. You can also take the seed once it's germinated and plant it in your garden if you have one. Coming into our last favorite hands-on activity, this is taste test. Taste test can be a really great way to have kids try different foods in your program. Sometimes I like to choose 2 different vegetables of the same variety, same fruit, but a different variety. So maybe I have a yellow apple and a red apple, or I have a yellow tomato and a red tomato, or a purple carrot and an orange carrot. And then what you're going to do first is you're going to pass out one food at a time, or if you're only doing one, that's absolutely okay as well. We will then have you could do some sensory engagement. So have the kids first hold it and not eat it, and ask them questions like, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? And then once you're ready, you can have all of the children hold up that fruit or vegetable in the air together, and then we'll take that bite all at the same time. This can encourage that positive peer pressure and that everybody's trying it, and we're going to try this all together. Then we can have the kids vote on which one they like best. This helps, again, talk about feelings. How did you feel when you tried something new? Did you like it? Did you not like it? And kind of emphasizing, it is okay not to like it. We don't need to necessarily make a big deal about it, but acknowledging that, and that's okay. Maybe we'll try again next time. This is a great way to make trying new foods really adventurous, and this can help make it really, really fun for the kids and encourage them to continue to try new foods in their life. Another thing I want to touch on is the connection between farm to early care and education and the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards. Doing these different activities, taste tests, gardening, cooking, and the other farm to early care and education activities I've talked about touch on all of the 5 domains of the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards. These activities that we've been talking about, they encourage active exploration by using the senses. We're smelling, tasting, touching things. We're also engaging in our fine and gross motor skills by chopping and touching different sensory inputs. We can express our emotions in terms of, I like this, I felt good about trying this new food. We're also stating individual thoughts and preferences. I prefer tomatoes over carrots. It also allows to us to give different opportunities for children to follow directions. We're following those recipes, and just as we introduce new activities to the class, we give out directions to them. trying new foods and engaging in these different activities also can help create a sense of curiosity. When we talked about the taste test, giving it kind of a sense of adventure. We can also do the development of math skills, as I've mentioned many times, measuring things out, working to chop, maybe we have to chop things into 10 pieces. So now we're counting those different pieces. And then making predictions, right? We touched on the part with the cooking, when multiple kids added different pieces of cinnamon to the mix, right? Maybe the prediction is that our muffins are going to be really, really cinnamony. So we can, as we engage in these different things, we can see on how it touches on all 5 of these domains of the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards. All right, so you may be thinking, wow, these are a lot of wonderful ideas. Where do I even start? I want to touch on a couple of really great places that are easy to incorporate into your program. The first are monthly taste tests. Taste test doesn't have to be tasting a new food every single day. You can choose just one food once a month to incorporate into your program. You can also incorporate books about gardening and food. I think almost all of you already do story time, and you can just start to incorporate some different books into that rotation that you do. You can sing songs about animals and food and gardening and farming. Making smoothies too. So if you're worried about cooking with children, smoothies can be a really, really easy thing to make. It doesn't really matter how big the chopped pieces are, if they're chopped correctly, because we're just going to blend everything together anyway. It also then, helps with the blending process. Can be really, really fun for kids to see. Salsa is that same concept as well. If you put that salsa into a blender or a food processor, the piece size doesn't matter. Now that we've given you some great starting ideas, I want to touch on some different resources that are available to you if you'd like to dive in more and learn about different ideas that you can incorporate into your program. We have some wonderful resources on our website. That's rootedwi.org/farm to early care education. And here you can find all 3 of these resources and more. But the first one touches on the apple taste test for young children. The second one talks about farm to ECE into the interest areas. And then the third is an activity that you can do if you take your students to the farmer's market. And then also on our website is Got Veggie's ECE edition. This has some wonderful activity ideas and ways that you can incorporate food and nutrition into your program. And then the second one here is a Beet and Carrots. It's a full-on lesson plan that you can do at your program. There's also wonderful curriculum out there and different activity guides. If you were to Google these, I'm sure you'll be able to find the PDFs, but Harvest for Healthy Kids is a great one. IATP's Farm to Child Care. USDA's Grow It, Try It, Like It is a great favorite of ours. And then if you use the creative curriculum, there are pieces out there, there's guides out there that support the creative curriculum and Farm to ECE models. So now that you have all of these ideas, you may be thinking, how am I going to fund this? A great place to start is using that Youngstar micro grant. So through your technical assistance with Youngstar, they're given recommendations, and then you're given a grant to make to help with those recommendations. And you can use that grant to buy cooking supplies or other activity supplies, as well as gardening. Looking in specifically at foods, if you want to do some cooking with your children, you can buy foods that are CACFP reimbursable. Almost all fruits and vegetables are. And then another option would be to get a CSA. A CSA is a community supported agriculture. And we talk about this in our local foods video. But basically there's a program that helps you get a discounted rate for that CSA. You can also ask for donations or discounts from local farmers. If you buy in bulk, there's oftentimes a discount for that food. So if you're at a group center, this may be something to look into. You can also look for different grants or sponsorships around. Asking local community members never hurts. And then just telling your people your ideas and plans. I know that we have a story from a local school here that one of the family members was a contractor, and they were hoping to build an outdoor kitchen in their center. And by talking and just sharing their plans for the outdoor kitchen, the father approached the center and said, hey, I work in this field and I have access to some free countertops. And so they were able to get all of the countertops and tables for their outdoor kitchen because they shared the idea of the outdoor kitchen with their community, and people were able to step in and help. So you never know what can happen if you were to just share your ideas with others. And that concludes the end of our training video. For more information, email us. You can email us at wifarm2ece@rootedwi.org. You can also sign up for our Farm to School and Farm to ECE newsletter. You can type that link into a web browser, or there's going to be a link below in the comment section. Again, you can also see our Rooted Farm to ECE website for more resources and ideas. If you're interested in registry credit, I'll talk about that in the next slide. But if not, I want to thank you for your time today, and hopefully I've been giving you some good ideas and inspiration for incorporating or expanding upon your Farm to ECE program at your site. Thank you. For those interested in the registry credit, you're going to type this link into your web browser, or the link for this will be below in the comment section. This will take you to a survey. You'll fill out that survey, and then the registry certificate will be emailed to you. If you have any problems with this, or if you do not receive the email with the registry credit, please email us at wifarm2ece@rootedwi.org. Thanks so much again.